Welcome to the Accounting Excellence Talk for September 2019. I'm John Stockdyke for Accounting Web, and with me I've got an expert panel. We're going to be exploring the whole idea of how to build a practice fit for future growth. Now, if you're watching this, we're not going to try and to convince you of the need to change. We think those arguments and debates have happened before. Instead, we're going to really try and get very, very practical about this. And we've got a great panel to help us with a sort of a big firm perspective, a smaller firm perspective, and then Wolters Kluwer, Matt from Wolters Kluwer at the end, who are producing this in association with. Everybody we think recognizes the need to change, but you do come at it from different directions, and people are at different places on the journey. So to explore that, maybe if the three of you could just sort of introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself and your firms or your companies, and just a snapshot of what your perspective is on that challenge of getting the firm fit for growth. So Emma, can we start with you?
Yeah. I'm Emma Chesson. I'm from Creston Reeves. We're a top 20 accounting firm with around 500 staff, predominantly based in the southeast. So we've had a lot of challenges with the people when it comes to incorporating online strategies and things. But we've got through a lot of that, and I think firms fit for the future really need to embrace online if they haven't done already, because it's not going away as much as some people might hope it does. It's not going anywhere, and we're just seeing that there's more and more out there in terms of apps and things that help us in our business. So it's really important.
Rebecca, what about you?
So I'm Rebecca Trodgett. I'm from Switchfoot Accounting. I started my own practice about 2 years ago. I help small businesses and other professional practices simplify and digitalise, and also use technology to improve cash flow. I think it's really important that practices narrow down the amount of different ways that they do things, because the technology is just not going to work unless they simplify.
And Matt, what can you tell us who you are and give us the Wolters Kluwer perspective?
Absolutely. So Matt Crook, I Managing Director for the UK business, and we as Wolters Kluwer have a real responsibility and accountability to be the companion to the advisor. So it's a really proud time for me to be leading the UK business in these times of digitisation, automation, market conditions. It makes me really proud to be here at the heart of it right now.
Excellent. Okay, well, we're going to dig into this, and before I get to the agenda, though, I'll just remind the viewers a couple of sort of housekeeping and technical issues. This is a live event, so if you're watching, but if you're called away or you lose the link or any reason you can't keep watching it, don't worry, it will be there on demand, and we'll send you a link afterwards so you can watch us again on replay to pick up all the great ideas. Also, if you are watching live, it is an interactive event, and as I said, we're going to try and be as practical as we can and get as many sort of ideas and how-tos across. But one of the ways you can do that is you can put questions to the panel yourself. Use the little chat panel next to where you're watching on the screen. That will come through to this iPad, and I will be occasionally, I will be listening, but I'll also be paying attention to what you say, and if it's relevant, I'll pop the questions as we go along. There will also be a Q&A at the end, so any questions left over, we'll try and handle them sort of from around the 1/2 mark for the final 10-15 minutes. So get involved. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out to it. So there's a reason why we're kind of picked up on this fitness for the future theme, and we'll go into that in a second. But I think it's very clear the idea of the digital workflow has certainly penetrated the profession. We have to thank HMRC for something once in a while, but they've certainly achieved that. And then I've picked up, and we all kind of know that formula about people, technology, and process. I've probably jumbled it around for today. I think maybe we'll look, because of the workflow idea, we'll start with process, then maybe examine the technology behind it, and then dig into, I think, the one where the great intangible, the people issues around fitness. And I think there's a lot there. It's a really interesting idea. And I'd say that will take us through to the end. I think I kind of, when we were talking about this, we joked, I think Emma and Rebecca, both, they're almost in sort of role of these personal trainer for the practice, you know. So these are your instructors for the afternoon. We're going to learn all the best exercises, and Matt, you're supplying the gym equipment. So you know, we'll work on that. So great. So that's what we're doing. So this is all part of your fitness program for the year ahead. Now, as I said, there is a reason why I think it's really timely, and this is a practice excellence talk. We've just sort of been processing and looking at all the entries from the 2009 firms. We gave the awards away just a week ago. I think you were one of our nominees, but you know, it's a tough competition out there. We found, if this chart on screen shows you the strange slight dips we've seen in the top line, which is cloud accounting, just general use of cloud, and also something that's been really growing, not quite in parallel, but alongside it has been people specializing in business advisory niches. Now, we've seen that drop. We've seen other innovative areas like forecasting tools and things dipping as well. You know, and in fact, the zigzags throughout the line since about 2016 illustrate what I call the MTD effect. You know, when they turn up the stress like they did in 2017, because we thought we were going to have to go April 18, you know, everybody piled into practice management and things, you know, practical stuff, and kind of turned away from the more adventurous ideas. We're back where we are this year, with the exception, I think, the lower of our lines, so the green and yellow show practice management tools and expense capture picking back up after a bit of a lull this year, and it's pretty obvious what's driving that. You know, these are tools that are going to help you deal with MTD. So people are putting in these systems, you know, not in massive percentages, but it's happening. And then the bottom line, the orange one, caught my eye. That's one of our sort of, you know, rising up the chart with the bullet ones. And that's people in their entries who told us they'd got digital workflows in place. And more often than not, they were talking about it in terms of to cater for MTD. Now, so as I say, Making Tax Digital has really embedded that. It's still kind of a minority interest, sort of still 15, 16% of practices entering our awards are doing that. So maybe it may not have, you know, workflows and digital processes may not have penetrated the wider marketplace yet. But we think, you know, having seen that trend starting to kick up, we think it's a good time to sort of really look into it and try and help people along that road. So that's our perspective. We think it's a really timely, and you know, we're thinking ahead. We've got through the first hump of MTD, but you know, there isn't long before tax, you know, self-assessment is going to be on us, and not too far distant future, MTD marked, you know, MTD2, the sequel, income tax. So that's why I think it's, you know, we lighted on this, but also Matt, the kind of idea came from Wolters Kluwer a little bit. You published a few months ago this white paper about how to build your practice for future growth. And as I mentioned, it's got lots of practical ideas and suggestions and how to. So you know, when you see the movie, you can download the book as well, and it's almost like a handbook you can mark your progress against. But as I say, so you've done research behind that, and you've published a white paper. But can you give us an idea, Matt, of the origins of the whole Fit for the Future concept?
Absolutely. Like I talked about in my intro. We are the companion to the advisor, so we've got to be right there at the forefront to give the right advice, the right on technology, on process, etc., etc. But what the publication will show you really is there's three main elements that we're focusing on, not only as a business but coaching our clients to, and that's around collaboration, real solid theme around getting closer to your clients, knowing your clients better. Onto productivity, so giving you the time back as a practice to then focus on the third element, which is adding value to your clients and through services. So the white paper will give you all of that information and much more in depth. We also have the roadshows that are coming up that go into a little bit more detail and more personal sessions coming up in October that will delve down into the real issues that our practices are experiencing.
So see the live event as well. Okay. So that's the sort of setting, but Rebecca, maybe you can kick things off for us. You know, how important is it to you and your firm, do you think, this idea of the digital workflow or the digital process to your sense of being equipped for the future and being fit and, you know, really ready to roll?
I think it's been absolutely essential, to be honest, because I'm trying to build a practice that I can scale. and I don't have the luxury of the office, so people need to be flexible and be able to work from home. So paper's not an option, but equally a lot of the digital workflows and the demand has been completely client-led, because that's the way they want to work with me and interact with me. So it's just a reaction to them.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Emma? Is it, how fundamental is it to the Creston Reeves way of operating?
Funnily enough, we do have a Creston Reeves way. So we've tried to look at the way that we work as a firm. Because we're so large, we try to standardise processes as much as possible. And part of that has been incorporating online software. And it comes back to Matt's point there about collaboration. It's so important to be able to collaborate with our clients, and having online systems enables you to do that so much easier than we used to be able to in the olden days.
So back in the olden days, when did you first sort of embrace more of the sort of standardised processes and thinking in the workflow way? When did that first sort of enter the firm's consciousness?
So back in sort of 2012, we looked at the market to see what online systems there were out there, because we recognised that that was the new trend and that's going to be where the flow would be going. And we didn't want to be left behind. We want to be one of the firms that does embrace things a bit quicker than perhaps other firms. And that's when we looked at Twinfield amongst some others, and we started to use that due to the scalability, the fact that it can adapt to a whole host of different clients that we work with. And then over the years, as other products have increased with their innovation, we now have several sort of best of breed in certain areas. So it's just so important that the clients come to expect that now from us. So it's so important to adapt to that now. If you're a practice and if you're finding that you're not utilising those kind of systems at the moment, now's the time to look at that.
If you've got kind of mixed bag of bookkeeping systems and maybe data capture or other software they've got that's feeding into the data you collect, do you have a process to standardise it, sort of some way to sort of formalise and homogenise the data and the work that happens to it when it gets into the firm?
Yeah, we do. We do try to standardise as much as possible, although that's absolutely client-led. So every client's bespoke. So we'll look at that and we'll try to work out the best way of dealing with that. But I suppose one of the other points is that once you've got a workflow, it's to keep revisiting that. I mean, we have obviously been using cloud for a little while now, and we've adapted a workflow over time. But only last month we were having sessions in London, really delving deeper again into that workflow, because there's just so much innovation with online at the moment that it's going to be a constant area of change.
So Rebecca, Emma's kind of been through quite a lengthy 7-year evolution with different products and constant revision. When and how did you embrace the digital way of working at Switchfoot?
I very much had a much easier route. I didn't inherit legacy staff to convince, or partners, or clients even. So it was very much from the start, it was how I was going to do things, and then it was finding clients that would then fit that model, rather than trying to convert people. People were coming to me because this is the way they wanted to do it, and their accountants weren't doing it that way. So it was a lot easier.
Okay, so I mean, I think we'll have to say that Emma and Rebecca are both maybe in those kind of leading 16% of firms we saw on the chart, Matt. How does their approach compare to the people you meet out in the field, and what other where would you say the mass of the profession is at the moment, or what's the situation you've seen this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. Workflow is a really interesting area at the moment. It's great to be with forward-thinking advisors. I think that the stat you mentioned before about workflow being still 15% is a surprisingly low figure. My assumption would have been it'd be considerably higher than that. But right from the top 4 to single-person practices, we're seeing efficiencies in workflow, and everybody seems to do it differently and have their own unique workflows. But what I can't stress enough is we see every scale of practice, and those that invest the time into a solid, robust workflow get paid tenfold with the time saved, and it comes back to that productivity and then being able to add value. If you can get these productivity gains from a robust workflow, you can spend more time with your clients, add more value here and there. So I can't stress enough how important it is right now.
Yeah, so I may pick up something we'll say there, but I'll just plant the seed now of the idea of kind of good habits and good technique. Sort of refine your technique and maybe take some coaching. But we'll move on to the coaching. Maybe if we could get specific. We've all lived through the great hurdle of making tax digital, and we've seen the effect it's had on the whole profession and taken us into this workflow area. But Rebecca, maybe again, let's start simple with you.
Yeah.
Could you explain what the workflow you've got in place? How digital can you get your clients from a bill or an invoice or receipt through to something that goes into the HMRC on the VAT return?
I mean, it's taken a bit of time to convince people of the way to do it. So it's been putting in invoice capture, so whether that's an auto-entry system or even in the Xero kind of expenses itself, or when you get something into your inbox, you're emailing it straight through to auto-entry again at Xero, so it's picking up the data from there, convincing them that actually it's worth spending a little bit of money on that because of the amount of time that they will save. Now that did take a while, but we're getting there, and people are, once they start and embrace it, they go, oh my God, why wasn't I doing this before? And I've heard that from other practices, but after I've trained them do it. So that side of things. But it's also getting people into the routine of doing things daily, and they laugh when you first introduce saying doing daily bookkeeping. But once they get it and they realise there isn't that panic on that Sunday when that VAT return's due and they get to be with their kids, then they get it.
Mm-hmm. Emma, is that again nice, fairly standard sequence there? Does it look like that at Creston Reeves?
Yeah, I mean it's so important to get sort of the basic layer, and I think that with MTD it's been a bit of a stick for some people, but it's enabled us to get into the position where once people are on the digitalised accounting system, then you can really start to add the value by bolting on other areas. So obviously you've mentioned the data capture, so I think that's kind of like the core layer. And then for those firms that have really embraced that, now it's looking at apps and then really kind of adding that value, looking at various sort of industries and the pain points there, and really developing that next step to online.
Mm-hmm. Although you may not have the sort of luxury of Emma's kind of nice niche, well-behaved and well-trained client group. I mean, are there sort of workflows and rescue routines you can apply where the client behaviour isn't kind of ideal? Or
so one of the things that we offer training, and some clients try to just get their hands dirty and don't necessarily see the value in that, but those kind of clients are the ones that then it costs so much more when you have to unravel things. So it's so important to try and invest that time and money early on as much as possible. And I mean, you mentioned that there are some clients that get it and some that don't, and I think we've probably converted the ones that get it before now, and it's the ones that don't maybe that have been converted because of MTD.
You've got the challenge that software guys are giving your clients access to do your job for you as well. So the feeling of I could actually do this. I could be an accountant, and then we see that a lot. The unravelling of what have you done to this, that, and the other. No, that's common.
But I think it's being willing to go back to your client and say, this didn't go well. Let's either work out, can we train you?
Yeah.
Let's put a plan in, see if it's any better. Or are we going to have to charge you more for tidying it up?
It's a good threat.
Yeah, that focuses. Although I'd like to pick you up because you said a kind of magic word there, plan. I mean, we know clients all are human beings who tend to put things off to the last minute, and dare I say it, we've got evidence in accounting where practitioners, will tend maybe to look to the next deadline hurdle and put things off until right before the deadline, and that's kind of it's not how you can't run a marathon by just saying I'll wait until in the morning before and do a few stretches and things. It's planning. You've got to sort of know that have a few milestones and build up to stuff. That is sort of one of our I think key things of fitness. So I'm glad you mentioned that. The plan and training. That's part of it as well. So lots of good ideas we'll get up to. But Matt, again, sort of, you're the roving reporter here.
Yeah.
What's the picture like, maybe in the wider profession? Has MTD really embedded the digital way of working, you know, across the market, you think?
I would say not, actually. I'm still really surprised at some of the stats that are coming out. So I think
a lot of bridging software. Yeah.
Well, I feel really sorry for you guys. I've got to say, 300 options at the moment to choose from, and to unpick that is virtually impossible. I know who I'd recommend, but it must be really difficult to really unravel that and bring that into your practice. So it's challenging times. But on the other side, we're still seeing a general lack of proactiveness. So we get to see lots of submission stats from MTD, and those stats vary from a month before submission deadline, and maybe 50% are in that bracket, to another 30% within 2 weeks. But at least 20% of submissions still happen on the last day of submission, which is surprising. It was surprising. I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but you sound like you're much more proactive than that. But it surprises me. It really does.
I mean, we do need to break this habit a little bit. So it sounds like have you got a secret to
well,
get over?
I don't know if there's a secret. I think having lots of touch points with clients is the way to go forward, and the training side. But I think it's worrying that if people are leaving the MTD submissions that late, it suggests to me that they're not managing the cash flow, because if you don't know what that VAT return is going to be, and you probably don't if you're leaving it that late, how can you plan to put enough cash by? And that's maybe why we see lots of people not being able to pay their VAT returns on time.
Well, I think it's, again, the daily habit. You told it, and I think a point you made too. I mean, we talk sometimes that there's all these pricing and value conversations, which can be hard to negotiate. But I think you picked on, you suggested something there of actually, you know, this isn't right. You know, we're either going to charge you more, or maybe we could do some training. And the training is a way of you can put some time on the bill. And you'll do it for as part of
it's built as part of my package, because that's how I market myself, and that's how I get people in. But I realise that other people would charge for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but you're communicating the value through the training, and again, you've got the megaphone out there, and you've got them running the circuits. And,
exactly.
You know, so okay. Well, we'll develop this further. But again, let's move on from MTD, because it's been a topic of conversation for so long. Maybe Emma, can you take us into your sort of digital process thinking? Does that move into any of the other areas? Where might there be other areas you can take the same mindset and discipline and automate and streamline and standardise other ways of working? Anything happening at the moment that you can?
I mean, absolutely. I think that there's so many different processes in a practice. You've got lots of different services that you offer. So it's trying to enable everyone to work as efficiently as possible, and it comes back to then adding that value to clients. Clients aren't really valuing compliance anymore, because most packages now, you can pretty much get a set of accounts out of them, so they don't see the value in that, and it's all very historical. Having these systems in place, it allows you to sort of free up the time to look at other areas. So, I mean, one of the areas we've looked at more recently is we've started to really push a growth team. So we've been able to save time on the compliance side to free up this time for us to learn a whole new sort of IP that complements what we're trying to do as qualified accountants. But it's something brand new to us. We're collaborating with brand agents, so it's completely sort of out of our comfort zone. But it's something that we're seeing a huge appetite from clients with, because they're having more visibility over their day-to-day numbers, and they want to know more, and they want to be looking more forward focused.
Will the brand advisors and consultants plug into your workflows in any ways? I mean, is it, are they feeding things through you can pick up and assign to the relevant team, or have a set of reporting targets to kind of give back to the client? Anything like that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. We've been running a school, so clients come into that. We help to build that growth strategy around the numbers and then the marketing, and then it's sort of benchmarking against certain KPIs that kind of fall out of that, and then it's then building the plan and helping them along the way.
So really the brand thing is you're giving them some vision, but also getting an infrastructure, you know, you're keeping them fit, but they're all in a kind of continuing, you know, it's not just a one-shot high and by.
Yeah.
You're training them in a
Yeah.
good, a certain amount of dependence on the expert advice. That's good. Rebecca, any areas for you, like we're planning ahead, you know, forward deadlines in next year, you know, say it's compliance related, but say around tax work, if you do income tax, I mean, you know, do you have any mechanisms for or workflows in place to make, you know, or have you all done for self-assessment season already?
We have done most of them, if I'm honest.
Okay, well, how? Tell me, what's your secret?
Because I think if you're using a software that people are using daily, once they've got to the end of the year, they want it done. They don't want to wait 9 months to find out how much they're going to pay. So I think that it definitely brings those deadlines forward, which is a good and bad, because it creates pinch points earlier in the year.
What about the stuff that isn't always in the account system? You know.
So I will use zero ask as questionnaires. I find that clients find it a lot easier because they may have 20 questions, but they can tackle it in chunks, and they can attach the bits that they don't, that they have as there and then. And you can then track what they have and haven't answered. Whereas if you send them a long email, one, they get bored after about that long, and two, it's really difficult to know what they have and haven't answered. So I find that really works.
Okay, Matt, you know, some compliance and some advisory workflow or processes in place. Where else can you take us? I mean, I guess we've identified maybe that the marketing activities are a little bit in a trough at the moment. You know, if people have other things on their mind this year. You know, is digital processes something you see or think you can apply to new business?
Absolutely. There's twofold, I would say. First of all, back to investing the time in digital workflows will pay back. Clearly, you demonstrated straight in that. I think the second bit is the consolidation of the bookkeeping packages. So I don't know how many you have as a firm, 12, 15, 20, that you have to know pretty much full detail on how to use that system. So CCH One Click from us is a great tool to channel all of those packages into one source, so that you can work on one set of data and the commonalities of that data. I think the other bit I wanted to just touch on was it just really demonstrates the complexity of your marketplace. You are forward-thinking guys, clearly. Those guys that aren't as forward-thinking, this is really tiring. This is a really difficult thing to do and design workflows. So we're seeing that in the market. It's no surprise the acquisition strategy of some firms are sweeping up these firms that are not ready to make that change. I think we used the analogy before of sat in front of the TV, these firms. And that's why clearly the market is, there are people out there that are picking off those firms that just aren't ready to take that next step.
Mm-hmm. So don't be a practice couch potato, is our and we maybe will, we've got a question from Marina, it's about free tools for the beginner. Maybe we'll pick that up in the Q&A, Marina, but thanks for asking us. But the practice couch potato, we want to banish that kind of thing, you know, that's wrong for the profession. So we are now getting into the more intangibles. I think, you know, we're the fitness council now, and we you know, so we've given them some ideas of some areas and some really good specific things you can do, but the people issue. I think one of the reasons I really responded to this, and we thought we'd bring it forward as a topic, is actually one of the sort of foundation texts of practice development. You know, the trusted advisor, David Maister, his follow-up book was called The Fat Smoker. And he wrote from this really sort of personal position, because he was overweight and he was a smoker and he'd had a heart attack, and so his doctor made him go on. And he sort of suddenly realised how, you know, he knew he needed to change, and the idea of making sacrifices now for some gain at the end, just he could tell it was really, really psychologically different. So, you know, he went into the whole motivation and sort of determination and things, and it was basically, you know, you've almost got, you know, you've got to want it, you've got to enjoy it, you know, rather than trying to lose a stone or 2 stone. You know, you just got to live a different life where you maintain a steadier weight. So that is really right at the heart of the 21st century, thinking about personal development, human development. So, you know, Emma, I think at one point we did crack you are like the personal trainer for your practice. You know, what kind of, you know, you've got a big team. What kind of challenges did you encounter at your firm, and so how have you worked through them? How do you get people to buy in and start with living a better life for them and the clients?
So first of all, it's not easy. So that's why I think it's so important for if you appoint one person to really champion this, that they've got to have the perseverance to stick with it, because people are complex creatures and everyone's got their own opinions on things. And what I found is that there was a proportion of people that do just get it, and they want to embrace it, and they're ready for it. So I try to sort of focus on those and really engage those people. Then you've got the people that, I suppose, once they see something working, they'll get it, and there might be a small proportion that just do not want to change. But that might be for reasons that they're probably not going to be in the practice for too much longer, so why do they need to learn a new process, and that kind of thing. So it's been a challenge, and what I've found is that once people do see it working, even the people that you wouldn't have expected or have put up great big barriers at the beginning have really started to see the benefits of it. And it really links in with the culture shift at the moment, in that people generally want a purpose in life, and they want to believe in what they're doing. So as accountants, the way we bring that in is actually making it the new norm, and the collaboration that enables us to have with our clients, it really invigorates that purpose of why we've become accountants. We're not just sort of churning out accounts like we might have been doing years ago. We're really collaborating with them, having that forward focus, which that's where the passion comes out of an accountant, if that's possible.
So Emma, how did you deal with the buy-in issue and the commitment?
Well, I haven't got any staff at the moment, so it makes my life quite a lot easier.
Yeah.
But in terms of clients, I suppose is the equivalent. It is just showing them and demonstrating how it does change their lives and how much time it does save them. And it's not just you trying to sell them something extra. And you know, you see it happening, and you get that kind of social proof, I suppose.
And Matt, you know, you're part of quite a big organisation. Can you pass on any suggestions to practitioners of all sizes? And to say, for example, Marina, I think, is someone calling herself a beginner. So, so you know, are there concepts or exercises or approaches you can think of that at least you said, you know, you wanted to have everybody buying into the vision, you know, so okay, you got to have the vision, but that next step of inculcating it or disseminating it and actually getting people to understand where you want them to go.
Yeah, there's so many different levels to this. A clear vision isn't an easy thing to do. No. These brands wouldn't spend billions of pounds on visions if they didn't need to. I can't advise her on free software.
I thought you might resist that. Yeah.
But what I could say, if you break down this, the mindset thing is really important for us at Wolters Kluwer, and we try and coach this to our accountants as well. Is really getting down into the day-to-day workload of an individual, and we ask our people to chart on a daily basis what's a mundane task and what's a task that you have to use your mind in a different way and for the first time, or really think about something. And if that split in a day-to-day, week, month, whatever it may be, isn't 70-30, if we're not using 30% of the brain in a new way, in a developmental way, then there's a problem, because you start to stagnate, innovation stops. So that's the same, not in a software, not just in a software business, but across your businesses as well. They're really important to keep fresh and innovate.
Mm-hmm. So if we are being a fitness coach, you know, where are we going to focus attention first? You know, what are the skills you think you want, you know, you need to encourage or maybe tease out of slightly reluctant colleagues or clients? So any, you know, which skill would you have them working out on first? The foundation. In Marina's case, almost where do you start? Like a foundation level to start with that and then add more complex challenges.
Well, I'd say that Marina obviously has point one, which is the right mindset for it, because she's clearly wanting to embrace something. So mindset's potentially something you can't teach, it's something you can influence, but that's so important that people have an open mind to it. And I think generally it's the softer skills that are going to be really important, because through the collaboration with clients, we can't any longer be those kind of accountants that are just stuck behind a desk and never to be seen in front of a client. They're really important. And then on top of that, the sort of the harder skills would be things like being sort of technically savvy. So, I mean, a lot of the softwares now clients can use, so they are explained in more layman's terms, that kind of thing. So they're generally quite easy to get around. Once you've got around one, you can adapt to most of them. But it's going to be really important to have those sort of technical skills there, I'd say.
Just going to pick up Noah's coming. It's kind of funny. We've got Marina's kind of sounds like she's a sort of smaller beginner firm, but Noah is from a large firm. So you've got exact companions watching you today. But I'd like you to comment on Noah's idea. He's considering recruiting a digital officer, like a individual to lead the charge. Now, is that you think that's quite a good idea? Was that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, that's something. So when I started to lead this, I suppose I sort of became that person. And then as the challenge got bigger with the take up of it, we started to try and build a team around that. And I think one of the things there would be that they hopefully wouldn't, if they're being brought in as that person, they won't have that client workload. And that's always the challenge in practice. It's the client portfolio, balancing that with deadlines and things, with actually the innovation part, and that's always a challenge. So if you can bring someone in, then you're looking at what kind of skills would you want that person to have. So I've brought in a couple of people over the years to sort of help me on the cloud side, and what worked the most successfully was that it was someone that has come from industry actually and got a lot of experience working, understanding the accounts, but also very personable, and got a mindset that they can just throw themselves into anything, and they'll rise to the challenge. So that's been a huge success. So they're the kind of attributes, I'd say.
So it's the aptitude, but you're a sort of more the self-help guru. You're doing it for yourself. So, but what are the what aptitudes or attitudes would you prioritise, Rebecca?
I think I'd look for someone who's willing to try new things and experiment and review it. If it isn't working, you cut it. So, and going back to the champion point, I think it's really important that practices do support those champions, because I think sometimes they've been hung out to dry a little bit, should we put it that way, and they need that support to keep going, and actually recognising that it's a difficult job and they need to time off that front line, because it just won't work otherwise.
And Matt, again, I don't think we can cover everything, but any sort of other areas you would add into the training mix, the fitness mix?
Yeah, it's quite hard. You can liken it to a marathon, but a marathon doesn't have the sprints that you have in the day-to-day work. But I just want to back up what you were saying around the importance of, we would call it digital specialists. There's loads of different words you can use, but we have the lucky position to be able to look at a cross section of firms, and you can clearly see the people at the firms that value and can put an ROI on those kind of roles are completely standing head and shoulders above the rest in the marketplace. So those that are slow to adopt this will be getting left behind, and will.
They're sitting on the couch.
Back to that guy, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's I know myself, that the breakfasts and things, and you just do fall into habits and ruts that over time, just add a few pounds and you slow down a bit, and you really have to actively commit yourself to not quite being like that. You have to think of yourself as a different you, and actually enjoy. Being able to climb the stairs without panting or whatever, and giving up smoking. We're getting quite. In fact, it is pretty. We might as well switch over to the Q&A section, because they are coming in. There's a quick question from your namesake, Emma. Another Emma has asked. We'll come back to you, but Marina was the first one, and I think I would like to respond or get our responses, and maybe Rebecca, you can help Marina. But
Yep.
I think what you can start from free as a beginner. I mean, I think you do stuff with Excel, I think you were saying, and the apps, if you've got the time and capacity to do all the trial times, you know, they all usually have at least 14, if not 30-day trials, so you can bolt in a tool and see if it exercise with it. But, you know, and I have used one personally for my work. It's called Zendone. It's like a getting things done, but it's a little bit of a personal workflow. Fell by the wayside after 2 months because it required quite a commitment of plugging everything into Evernote and tagging it, you know, and the daily habit of maintaining it. So I don't think that worked for me. But what would you say to Marina? How she could sort of get
I'm
going?
always really nervous when people talk about free apps because how is it free? What's
Or
happening
free
to your data?
disciplines, things you can do
Yeah,
for no
I
cost.
think probably the best thing she could do is probably to specialise in one bookkeeping package and then look what is free that sits around that. That would be my starting point. Because I think if you're trying to do lots of multiple packages and then bring that data together, that can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
And I think, just picking up on that, I would also say, why would she be looking at free in particular? Does she need to have a look at how she's going to bundle things with clients? Because generally, software these days, accounting firms don't generally bear that cost themselves. In some way, it's passed on to the client. So there's a number of softwares out there that are reasonably priced that probably could get passed on.
And on behalf of Matt here, really, Marina, sort of when you find something that works, you know, bite the bullet. You are going to have to pay for, it's something, you know, you can bundle into your fee or charge onto that. But, you know, if you're going to be fit, you've got to have the right, you know, if you're going to practice at a certain level, you've got to have the right tools. And you know, the fitness includes, you know, a professional grade bit of kit that will take the beating you're going to give it over time. So, you know, certainly get started. You know, it's the experiment. I think you said it doesn't cost a lot to experiment and to think of in fact, that's probably really the systems analysis, thinking of the process through. What are the steps you need to make? What are the inputs? What's the client need to do? Experiment, and then make your choices. But Matt, so as I say, I've made the case for paying for professional software. Any other tips for Marina to maybe lure her in your direction over the long term?
Yeah, we've got the roadshows. I
Yeah.
did mention that.
Yeah.
But joking aside, the investment in technology should be, and you can correct me, guys, the most important decision you make as a business, because everything is underpinned from that choice, and that's how you run your practice. It's called practice management. So it should be the biggest decision you make in your practice. So you've got to get it right. The due diligence is there. If you've got to see all the packages out there, and as I said, get the due diligence right.
And one of the really important parts to get across there is that the support that those packages give you, especially if she's a lone practitioner, is going to be invaluable. If you're looking at free software, the chances are the support might not be fantastic. So when you're looking at core packages and apps as well, it's so important to have that support and have that support locally. Yeah. It's not so good if it's in a different country.
And sometimes what you get bundled in is the vendor education, you know, the white papers, the materials. You know, there's a lot of and Accounting Web even. You know, there's and advice from your peers. Doesn't cost anything to ask peers to come and share their expertise. Now we mustn't forget Noah here. Probably this is the last question we'll have, but Noah, and there's a few more have come in, so thank you for your questions. And anything we don't handle here, there's a little after hours video we'll shoot, so a warm down video because we're being fitness. But Noah's question, Emma, sort of a bit of a specific, is what's the sort of most effective thing you've done, or you know, what's given you the biggest efficiency boost at Creston Reeves? You know, and you know, again, maybe not just doing the cloud software, but since that first initial step, maybe along the way, what's really moved the dial?
I would say that it's the people. As soon as you get that mindset and the people brought into it internally, you can get things moved so much quicker. And I feel as though with MTD for us, we're having conversations with different people internally that we wouldn't have had before, where they are suddenly putting the pressure on that they want to be looking more forward focused with their clients. And absolutely, I think once, because you can only do so much as one person, if you've got a team around you that are like-minded, you'll get things done so much quicker. So it's the people aspect, I'd say.
And I think the idea of making people, self-determination, it's better for you. You actually have a more enjoyable working life, or your business prospers if you're willing to commit a little bit of effort for this. Yeah. I think that counts as quite a good parting tip from you, actually, because we are running late. So this is the final farewell. Again, we want these people to go out there and start working out, getting their firms really, sleek and streamlined and losing a few pounds. So, what's your kind of top fitness tip to send people away ahead of?
I think it's just keep learning and keep talking to other people going through the same journey as you. So go to the conferences, go to the expos, and just keep learning more.
Okay, Matt, I guess the final word for you. This is the.
Other than investing in a good gym, you've got to invest in a good gym. Yeah. Is the shared vision of a business. It's no surprise the top sporting teams spend an absolute fortune on visioning and seeing that goal, seeing that victory. So the whole of your practices, whole of your businesses, if they have buy-in, they've actually input into a vision, much more likely to follow that vision and get the results from that.
Excellent. Okay, we've had a great question from Paul, but I'm afraid we don't have time in this live webcast to hand out Paul, but I think stick around. We'll try and do a special edition for you and look at the kind of challenges for new adopters, the later adopters of cloud. So Paul, we're thinking of you. Thank you for your question. Everybody else, they did come thick and fast at the end there. It's whizzed by. It's been a really interesting, entertaining session. So I'd like to thank you, Emma, Rebecca and Matt, all for your input. Lots of good practical advice there to really help people be more effective and have a more prosperous and happier 2020. So thank you very much for watching. Join us again for further Accounting Excellence talks, and I look forward to seeing you then. So farewell, goodbye, and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.